We got our funding from Workforce Solutions Rural Capital Area. Thank you very much. We could not do this event without you, as well as all of our guests and, of course, our presenters. I'm Carrie Casey from Texas Director. This is who I am. That's my cute book.
All right, so we're going to talk about why marketing matters, who is your ideal client, the 4 Ps, what's in a name, brand identity, and then we're going to talk more about checking that name. There is more content in here. I am going to talk at some insane speed, so I'm just warning you that up front. All right, why does marketing matter? Well, if you don't do it, people don't know you're there. And we want you to have control and understand that everything you say and do is marketing. So, who is your ideal client? So, these are the types of things you want to ask yourself. How many kids do they have? Where do they work? How old are they? How old are the adults? How old are the kids? And do they have any hobbies? Now, you might be trying to figure out why I care what their hobbies are. You can't partner as well with potential families if you don't know what their hobbies are. If you are in a part of a town where there's a lot of gardening happening because of the time of the year, or maybe you are in a more rural area where there is a lot of equestrian programs, again, understanding the hobbies of the adults is usually a really good thing when it comes to marketing. All right, so the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. Hopefully, you're at least somewhat clear what your product is. However, your product is more than just one thing. You might be offering full-time care. You might be offering part-time care. You might be offering out-of-school time care, before-school time care, summer camps, drop-in. You might even be looking at a kindergarten or a micro school. So all of a sudden, you might have thought you knew exactly what your product is, and I just gave you 9 other versions of potentially your product. Okay. All right. So let's talk about pricing. How do you figure out the price? Well, first of all, you have to know what your expenses are. So when we talked about budgeting, now some of you may have went, I don't want to know about budgeting, and so maybe you didn't come that week. Well, this is my opportunity to plug score.org. So if you go to score, SCORE.org, it's down at the bottom of all of the slides, and you type in things like startup budgets, management budgets. There's options for learning how to budget outside of our workshops. You have to know what your expenses are. Now, should you know what other people are doing? Absolutely. Sometimes people will do this themselves. They will secret shop and they will call around for others, or they'll have their friends call, or they will find out what other people are charging just because it's on people's websites. You can also hire people to actually come and do this on a professional level in your community. So they'll shop everybody, they'll shop 1 or 2, depending on what you need. The other thing you have to remember when you're thinking about pricing is that pricing probably changes. There are folks that will throw in discounts. So price would include things like discounts, percentages off, tuition, discounts for staff, perhaps. So understanding what you're pricing is absolutely a big part of your marketing. There are annual fees. There might be fees based on going on field trips. We're in the summer. So you might have field trip fees. So all of these different prices might be separate, or you might be a program that makes everything all inclusive. So again, understand your price. You have to know your price. You can't sell something you don't know what it costs. Now, understanding the lifetime value of your client is incredibly important as we're talking about marketing. So if families start with you at whatever the youngest age is, so some of you, it might be 6 weeks, others of you, it might be 6 months. We might have programs that are just school age. So in other words, only from kindergarten to 5th grade. Kindergarten to 5th grade is still 6 years. You need to know what is the lifetime value of that family. So for example, if they are an infant and they are at your program, and in your program you bill infants out for up to 18 months and they're going to be at 1500, then that's line one. Okay. But then you're going to add that to the toddler rate, and then the pre-K rate, then the school age rate, and then the summer, which it really should probably say camp, because it's the summer camps, the Thanksgiving Day camps, and the Christmas camps. In this particular scenario, the lifetime value of one child in one program is $109,000. If you only think about families and children from a 1 month perspective or 1 week perspective, and you aren't thinking about how much they're worth to you, the entire relationship that you're building, then you're going to lose the whole concept of building the retention, because marketing is not just putting them in the door, it's also keeping them. Okay, so I am going to talk more about getting them literally in the door, because a lot of y'all are brand new programs. However, we want you to remember that you have to keep them, and it's a whole lot cheaper to keep them than to go get them. So those are the first two P's, and I want to talk about place. Do you know that McDonald's is the #1 owner of retail space? So in other words, McDonald's is known from an industry standpoint all about its ability to pick real estate. McDonald's and Starbucks, it's all about the location. Their signage, how easy is it to pull up into the driveway? How easy is it to leave the driveway? Do you know that if the environment changes around your McDonald's can tell you that you have to tear down the whole building and you have to move? Okay, because all of a sudden your community might have gotten like a whole lot of apartments and schools, and all of a sudden the traffic pattern is no longer conducive to what McDonald's wants as a traffic pattern. So we want you to remember that that is the same with you. So you have to think about the traffic patterns. Are you a childcare center that people drive to as a convenience? Is it on their way to work? Or are you a destination childcare program? An example of a destination childcare program might be a Montessori program that is French English immersion. In other words, anybody in town will drive their child to that program because they want what that program has to offer, not necessarily because it's convenient, but because it's unique. And not just a little unique, it's the only one in town. Okay? We also want you to make sure that you are aware of where are major employers. Are you easy to get to when people have to drop off? And are you easy to get to when people are picking up? So when we also think about place, we also want to think about our building's first impressions. So for those of you who are brand new, you haven't signed a lease, you haven't bought a building, this is for you. Take some notes. Whether you're operating in your home or you've taken over a program, I know there's a couple of people that are now new management. If you're thinking about expanding to the second, third, fourth location, something to think about. The very first one is your entryway and your front door. What does that say? Is it full of scuff marks? Is it a friendly color? Or do you look like you're in a warehouse, like they're coming through a garage? Do you still have the COVID postings? What kind of notes are on your door? What does your front door say? Do they know where your front door is? I've been to programs where I have to kind of like walk around and kind of maybe guess where the front door is. What does the sign look like as they drive by? Is it friendly? Is it clear? What about your driveway and your parking lot? We've all been to that business where we look at the parking lot and go, I really want to go there, but I'm afraid for my car to go in that parking lot. Plants, they're friendly. I'm not saying you can't have plastic plants for certain seasons, or you can't have a fake, evergreen tree during the winter seasons, but what would the families think if you had dead plants? So you have to think that through, right? So if you're not a gardener or that is not your thing, don't put planters by your front door. The other thing in first impressions to think about are those banners, the signs, the temporary flag. You don't always want to have now enrolling No, no, no. You need to be specific and clear. Now enrolling infants, now enrolling toddlers. Put the different age groups up there and rotate those signs. Invest in some good ones, but then take them down, roll them up, take care of them, put them back up 8, 10 weeks later. Don't have them up all the time. We get blind. Okay. Here's some driveways before and after. I don't know about you, but that one on the left, I don't want to go. I would like my tire. So here is a child care center that Carrie and I go back and forth on. I think it used to be a nursing home. Carrie is just sure that it's a previously branded child care center that they didn't change the roof lines. The sign is so tiny, right? It looks more like a for sale sign there out in front. And my favorite is the washer and the dryer on the porch. Business HOAs, they do exist. So some of you may not realize that they exist.
And the HOA could be also for our home-based providers. And the business thing that's like an HOA is called a POA.
So here's a couple more front entrances to take a peek at. Both of these front entrances are warehouse types of spaces. The one on the right added the cantilever entrance so that people knew where the entrance was. They put the cement planters there because if you notice, there's no stoppers for the cars. One of the things that I really like about this particular building on the left is you can see there's a mailbox there, and it's a flyer box. It's got flyers about the program. So if you happen to drive by, there's a lot of businesses in that industrial park that are open in the evening that for people who have children, music kind of programs and dance programs. And so they've put the flyers out and they keep the flyers out regularly. And sometimes they'll post special things in their flyers, but it's always full. It's always up to date. And they know that people take them. They've had people who've come back and said, hey, I haven't been able to make it on a tour while you're open, but I got your flyer. I'd like to enroll my kid. So they made a first impression just off of having that resource available for those who were in the industrial complex. So we've talked about the first impression from the outside. You've gotten their attention. They've driven by. They've pulled into the driveway. Now they're going to walk through the door. You need to think about all the senses, right? What do they see? What do they smell? What do they hear? Where are they sitting and standing? If you've ever been to any Disney anything, Disney's got its hand all over its brand. And if you're at a Disney park, they actually funnel smells. Like they pipe in the popcorn smell. Do you know that they do that at your movie theater? So what do they see? What do they smell? What do they hear? Do they hear the phone ringing all the time because nobody's answering the phone? Biggest marketing tip I can give you, answer the phone. Here are two different entrances to childcare programs. Yes, the one on the right absolutely looks like some sort of medical office. But you know what? There are people that this appeals to. There is nothing wrong with either one of these. It depends on the type of program you have. And we know that very early on, Carrie talked about that. The other thing I want you to remember is that you yourself are part of your brand. Are you trustworthy? Are you confident? You need to be able to be relatable to the parents, but you also need to be relatable and practical within your business. So absolutely clear, not clever. This goes with your name. This goes with your marketing. This goes when you're hiring. We just talked about that last week when we were talking about staffing, right? You need to be clear about the type of person you're looking for, right? Ask for what you want. What kind of family do you want in your program? If you are a Montessori program, say you're a Montessori program. If you are an academic program and you want to say that you are a kindergarten readiness program, then use that in your naming convention, use that in your marketing. But if you are a play-based program, your marketing needs to match your play-based program, right? It needs to match your educational philosophy. As you're thinking about the name of your program, and believe it or not, we've worked with people who've actually, after working with us, have changed the name of their program. because they realized that their program name didn't match their educational philosophy. It didn't connect with their ideal client. And therefore, people were expecting one thing and it's not what they got. Your name is incredibly important when it comes to your marketing. It's telling people about your program. Domain names, digital presence. I would strongly encourage you to go to namechecker.com and type in what you think you want. And you know what? It will actually give you suggestions if they're not available, but it'll also tell you where they are available. So if the only place they're not available is Instagram, then you can ask yourself, do you need to be on Instagram? Are your parents on Instagram? Are your staff on Instagram? That may be a deciding factor. So brand identity. So branding is a process. It is the process of creating brand assets. So this does include things like your logo. It includes things like taglines, type fonts, colors, mascots, a catchphrase. It's going to change over time, and branding is a process. And usually that process goes with the organization. For example, Just Do It is a really good example of something that is a tagline. It has been around since '88, but it has evolved. First of all, your logo. 2, 3 colors at the most, plus black and or white. You need to be clear, not clever. If you want to put advertisements in your local elementary school's program, they're going to ask you for probably a black and white logo. If you've got 14 colors in there, it's going to look like a bunch of grayscale blobs. Here's an example. 3 colors: friendly, outdoor, probably something related to play. A lot of different marketing channels work, but you have to understand that word of mouth is huge. That is going to be probably your most significant, immediate way to actually fill up your program. That and being able to tell people what makes you unique. I live in a part of Central Texas that literally on my road, there are 12, hear me, 12 childcare centers. There are 4 Montessori programs on that road. And very few on this road can actually tell you what makes them unique. Your staff are part of your marketing. So don't be afraid to spend some money in giving them shirts with the logo, because chances are when they leave work, they're going to take their shirt with them. I don't know how many of your staff, but none of my staff are changing in the parking lot unless they're going out. But chances are they went to HEB or they went to the local grocery store wearing their shirt. Your parents are part of your marketing. What they say, how they react to your program, and who they talk to. But remember on like slide 5, we talked about the lifetime value. I have programs tell me, oh, my parents don't need a t-shirt. I don't have the money for that. Okay, an adult size t-shirt should cost you roughly $12 US. Even if I bought you one a year for 12 years, that's $144. I think if you're giving me $109,000 over 12 years, I should be able to give you $144 in t-shirts. All of you who have children yourself, if you have not bought a branded shirt, you will end up with 12 before they are 5, because they will have sports teams. They will have their favorite character. Okay. This is something we all do, right? We all buy branded shirts. You have to absolutely make sure people know who you are. Now, t-shirts and logos are things that you can absolutely do. You can start today. Okay. So it doesn't matter when your program opens. It doesn't even matter what kind of program you are going to have. But today you need to start a list. I'm talking about a list you can use to communicate with people. Okay. You can call it an email list. It's a marketing list. And then you need to communicate with that list. I'm not talking about every day. I'm talking about once a month. Let them know what's coming. Make it useful content. So in addition to those, I want you right now to go make a presence in your community. Go join your local chamber of commerce. Go show up at those meetings. Go to a city council meeting. Go to a planning and zoning meeting. You might even have an issue that you're really passionate about. For example, maybe what you really want is every child in their car seat correctly. And this is your thing. Before you open your doors, you can have car seat inspection events and rodeos. You can bring out the fire department or the police department, whoever in your community does it, have them at your new location before you've opened, and have them do car seat inspections. This is really important if you know that your ideal client has infants. I would suspect you're going to have grandparents, new parents that may not know exactly what they're doing. On the other half of this slide is an example of something that can be useful, that you can send out in an email, that you can put your logo and brand on. Okay, here is a summer checklist to get your kid ready for school. This is an example of something that you could send out to your list, and it's useful and it's a way to communicate. Put yourself into your marketing. This is not the time to be bashful. You are the face of your program. You are who they're going to interact with. So you know what? You need to know that you're going to be the crazy lady that loves Play-Doh or that is all into glitter, and own it, be it. Okay. When you walk through the grocery store, you want everybody to go, hey, that's the Play-Doh lady. Okay. Whatever your thing might be, you want to make sure that people know who you are. Yes, you should probably also be wearing your school's t-shirt if you're running through an HEB or a grocery store. People will connect with you, and you are going to be part of the brand. Even folks who buy a franchise, they end up associated, right? Like you're the owner of this program. So when people see you at community events, PTA events, whatever local event you sponsored, like, golf classics, scholarship fundraising events, all of those. Okay. So mistakes we've seen, we've all seen them. One of the ones that right now I bring up, and it's not because I don't like Canva. I totally understand the excitement behind software like Canva, even some of the apps and what you can do on your phone, AI generated photos, all of that. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. If you don't really understand basic branding concepts, I talked before about 2 or 3 colors. I'm going to say the same thing with type fonts. Understanding how pages can be balanced and not balanced. These are all things that sometimes it's worth working with professionals. So here's my talk of that. All right, so here's what I want you to do. If you want a 2-page handout on figuring out lifetime value of your clients and some other marketing tips, if you want that freebie, fill this out.